proudly present to you our Ask Me Anything series, Teacher to Tech, featuring Syeda.
Thanks so much.
Yep, Syeda, do introduce yourself and you can share your screen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shermaine. That was an amazing introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Syeda. I am a Platform Services Solutions Architect at VMware. That was a mouthful, but what that means is that I go ahead and take VMware products and break them down for my clients to understand and enable them into their environment so that my clients feel comfortable using the technologies that we have in their environment. Now, for today's talk is from Teachers to Tech. So as you guessed, I actually used to be a teacher. I taught for about 7 years, and I leveraged my background in teaching into the tech space. And so this is what the talk is going to be about. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. You'll notice that I'll move my head up and down because I have 2 screens. So just wanted to put that on everyone's radar. All right. And share. Okay. All right. From Teacher to Tech, ask me anything. The first thing I want to do is I want to learn more about everyone here. So what are you interested in learning about in this tech? And these are the 2 questions I'm going to have everyone answer is what is your greatest challenge in getting into tech? And what are you most interested in discussing today? I'm going to go ahead and drop this into the chat. Oh, perfect. Is it already in the chat?
It's okay. I dropped it in the chat already.
Thank you so much. And if you guys can go ahead and answer that, we can go ahead and see some of the answers up here. Oh, sorry, let me clarify. So right now you would go ahead and either click on that link that's dropped into the chat, menti.com/GKNUE241UE U3, and go ahead and answer the question, what is your greatest challenge into getting into tech? I'd love to get a sense of the audience and what I should focus most of my talk on. And if you're having too many problems with that, just feel free to drop your answers into the chat. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Men, that is a real one. Career progression, technical experience, finding my space, difficult interviews. Yes, little experience, finding what I want, no tech education, where to start. Career progression, it is hard. Yes, it is. Pivoting. Yes, training. Awesome. Perfect. Okay, yeah. Thank you all so much. And if you want to add anything else, feel free to drop it into the chat. Now I have a, oh, it's still going. I'm gonna go ahead and wait just a little longer. Bootcamp to get in a job. Yeah, that is a difficult transition. Pivoting, not enough learning from first opportunities. Okay, and now my next question for you is, what are you most interested in discussing today? And you should be able to use the same link.
Syeda, it says that voting is closed though.
Yeah, so I saw that. And so the other alternative is we can go ahead and drop those answers into the chat. Let's stop sharing real quick. Yeah, I'd love to just see the answers into the chat. I'm a teacher now looking for space and tech, how to start. getting into cloud or data science? The process in changing from teaching to tech. Curious what insurance and benefits look like in tech in comparison to teaching LMLE. I can't wait to tell you about that. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. And then if you guys have anything else, feel free to add into the chat. From bootcamp to how to get your first job, don't feel like I know enough to get a first job into cloud. Yeah, awesome. Okay, perfect. So just to start off and give you guys a little background about me, I've been an educator for 7 years. I have taught in Morocco, I've taught in New York, I've taught in DC. I have my master's in education. But right before COVID, I went through this experience where I just felt like I was doing a lot of work. I was never off. I just felt like I need a change in my life. And then with COVID, I noticed that as everything was shutting down, we were still living. And I wanted to find out, how is it still possible that like we're still living our lives? Like, how is tech able to do this? So I wanted to explore more into that. But I know that I love teaching, but I did not enjoy being a teacher. So what I looked into is, what did I enjoy about teaching and how can I transfer it into the tech field? What I enjoyed about teaching was taking those complex content and just breaking it down for students to digest them and understand it. You know, I love when students had their aha moment. I didn't enjoy talking to parents. I didn't enjoy talking to principal. I just enjoyed the way that students were able to understand something, and that light just went off. And I wanted to know, how can I take this and put it into tech? Tech is a diverse field full with lots of different opportunities. And I wanted to know how I can make sure my passion, my skill would align with a position in tech. And so just to talk to you guys about my process, I had quit teaching in November, right before COVID hit. And then I went through some odd jobs of, working part-time with the State Department, or I actually taught after school coding to elementary school students. And then I decided, I really want to get serious about getting into tech. So I first got my Security Plus through a boot camp with Montgomery College. And then again with Montgomery College, I did my AWS Cloud Practitioner and AWS Solutions Architect. And still after that, I felt like I just was not succeeding. I was not getting into the roles I wanted to. I was applying, but nothing was happening. I talked to as many specialists as I can, people who can help me with my resume, and just making everything, and just trying my best to trudge on forward, because I think that was the hardest part, is that transition phase. One of the things I started doing is I actually applied to be a student at a boot camp for cloud practitioner after I already gotten my AWS cloud practitioner. And the person I interviewed with saw my resume and they were just like, oh, do you want to be a TA instead? And that's when I finally got a leap into the tech field. It was just my first foot forward, and that really helped me get things going. And so today I just want to talk a little bit about resumes, and what that can look like, what that looked like for me, and the transformation that I needed to make in order to get into the tech field. And feel free to drop any questions into the chat as I'm talking this over. So with resumes, the basics is, please make sure it is readable. So you're gonna think about spacing, spelling, grammar. You have to make sure all of that is like correct, okay? If a recruiter is looking at your resume, they're usually just looking at that top 1/3 of the page, and that is your real estate. In that time period, you need to convince a recruiter that you are ready for the tech field, that you are ready for that first position, that you're more than qualified. The second thing is, you want to make sure you're telling a story. So if my resume says I have my master's in education, but I'm also looking forward to being in tech, and then I have I have experience teaching, and then I have experience in tech, that's not a story because it's very chopped up. right? And I'll show you what my resume looks like now and how I was able to tell my story. The last thing is make sure you're editing your resume to target your desired role. Every resume can look a little bit different because you want to make sure you're using those keywords for that specific role. So before I move forward, I want to show you my before resume and then my after resume. So we can go ahead and critique it. Let me bring it up. So this is my resume before I got into the field. And I love for people to drop into the chat, like, how could I have made this better? Or how can you critique this to make it better? Oh, it's hard to see. Give me 1 second. I can make it bigger. But just looking off of that, but just visually, how does this look to you all? And I can make this a lot bigger, actually. It's very compact, too many words. Not sure what to focus on. Very loaded. Okay, but I see that someone wrote, sorry, Melly wrote that I'm utilizing that first third. So I'm using my real estate. Invest that it looks exactly like hers from afar. Yeah, so when I'm looking at this, if a recruiter is looking at this, or even you all, you're telling me that this reads like an essay. It's way too wordy. There's too much going on. I don't know what to focus on. How can I help my reader focus in on what is important? I just want the role. I don't want them to feel like they're reading an essay to get to understand who I am, right? And so I'll show you a couple of things that I've did to change this. All of this is way too wordy. The first thing that someone wants to look at is not like a lot of words, right? They don't need a paragraph introducing my resume. A couple of things that I do want to point out is that worked well for me is having this highlighted, having a line here to kind of separate the sections, having this title here because this was the position that I was going for, having your LinkedIn, so it's just an easy click. And then you'll notice in my experience, I'm telling them what I did. And this feels like a lot. So I want to find a way to make it easier. Okay. And then here, I put in things that aren't really important to this role, like American Civic Center. Like, yeah, this might be cool, but it's not something that's necessary. So that's something I might want to take out. I did include this professional development because although these weren't positions, I did want them to know that, hey, I have tech experience. And so this was the before, and to show you guys what the after looks like. And then here, what are some differences that you guys might notice from what you saw before and after? Less words. Easy to read. Yeah, so if you look at this, it's tech focused. You know exactly the position I'm applying for, the type of position I'm interested in. All of this up here is all tech, and you can tell that just by looking at it for 1 second. You don't need to read through an entire paragraph to understand that. You know, whereas in the resume before, like it felt like for me, I was just like, I don't want to let any of these go because like I felt like all this is important. But at the end of the day, it's like, what do you want the recruiter to know as quickly as possible? What do you you only have about less than 60 seconds to convince the recruiter that you're interested. So here I have my certifications. I want them to know like, hey, I'm already certified in these. I'm good. Technical skills. Here are the things that I know well, I can speak to. My education, I just want you to know that I have my master's and my bachelor's, but I don't want to go into any more than that, right? So this is my story. I want you to know that this is as tech focused as possible. And then here, you'll notice that what I did is instead of telling them exactly all the things I do, I said, hey, this is my main role. And here are a couple of things that I was recognized for, right? So it makes it easier for people to understand, okay, she's being recognized, she's going above and beyond. And those are important things to let recruiters recognize. And I didn't let this go just yet, but you'll notice that this feels a lot shorter and it's a lot more readable. And then you'll notice I did the same thing here. Instead of multiple lines saying what I do, it's lines of how they can recognize me. And it's much shorter. I don't know if you guys noticed. And it's much more readable. I saw Mel wrote that certifications listed without explanation at the top. So it depends on the field. So some of the fields, they'll automatically know what they're looking for. And they're like, okay, AWS, that's exactly what I need you for. You might want to put in, if you need to, put in what it might be for if it's not obvious by the title, but I would just put in the certification because it's quick and easy. All right, so that was my before and after. Any questions about resumes? And notice that it's telling a story. It's like, hey, I'm really into technology. Look at this transition that I made from teaching into technology. So I put AWS Cloud Practitioner, so you know tech, but you have that technical trainer part. So I'm leveraging my education experience still, right? And so with this resume, I was able to get a lot more hits on, okay, sorry. Yvette asked if she could see the second page. I was able to get a lot more hits on LinkedIn with recruiters. I was hearing back a lot more. So I definitely felt that change, that less was more. Awesome. All right. And so that's for my resume. The next thing I want to show y'all is LinkedIn. Okay. Leverage LinkedIn. Use your network. LinkedIn can be so amazing. The first thing I want to say is add recruiters. Find people in your network who are recruiters and reach out to them because they'll share job postings. When you see a job that you're interested in and you see that the recruiter is connected with that, you can reach out to the recruiter like, hey, I applied to this job. Can you give me any more information? Or, if you want to follow up with recruiters, that's a great place to do that. Find people in your network at the job. If you're interested in a position, find people in your network who works at that company. Reach out to that person because employees also get a referral bonus if they refer you and you get the job. So it's in everyone's best interest to help you get a job. So that part is amazing. So please use your network. The other thing I would say is edit your LinkedIn. It's your online resume, it's your internet presence. Make sure that when people see it, it looks amazing. And quick little things you can do is make sure your profile picture is professional, have a banner, put your feature story, like all your projects that you've worked on, any internet presence that you have, that is a great place to just showcase your work. Have summary, have recommendations from other people, make sure your website and project links are there. Okay, and this is a great example. So this isn't someone in tech, but they have just such a great example of how to leverage your LinkedIn as best as possible. And so this is Yana S. Clark. She's in my network, and you'll notice she has her profile picture. she has a banner, right? And then when I scroll down, you see her featured. She's putting all her internet presence here, right? And then as I scroll down, you see all this activity. When you want a position, share information about that position. So if you're interested in like solutions architect, share information like, oh, how to be a great solutions architect, or anything that other people in your network are sharing. So that way your internet presence becomes about becoming a solutions architect. Even in your position, I would even change that to solutions architect or aspiring solutions architect. So that way those keywords are there. So people know that you're interested in that tech space. And then your experience, your education, and then here, have these recommendations, ask people for recommendations, because that'll give recruiters and people in your network just an insight on the type of employee you could be, or type of peer you might be, or colleague you might be. Okay. And if you have any questions, let me know. So just make sure you guys are leveraging your LinkedIn. And that this helped me a lot. The way I actually got my position, or I got connected to my position, is someone in my network. A recruiter had reached out to someone in my network, and that person knew that I was interested in a tech job, and so they forwarded me that position. But it was through LinkedIn that it all happened. The next thing I want to share with everyone is what I do, where I am. I'm a solutions architect, cloud at VMware. So one, what is a solutions architect? I've mentioned this in the beginning, but the idea is that I'm taking VMware products and I'm sharing them with my clients, and I'm figuring out what kind of environment my client has, right? And how can my product work with their environment? So I'm giving a specific solution to a specific client, and every client is going to look different. Right? And this is amazing because like with teaching, that's something similar I had to do, is like I had a room full of students and I had to share the same content with them, but each of them was coming in with something different. So my goal was, how can I make this, how can I make sure that the student was still learning, that the client is getting what they need, even though it might be different client to client. The other thing I've learned is that, so the Tanzu products that the Tanzu product is a part of VMware, and that's what I'm sharing with my clients. It's something that sits on top of Kubernetes. And one thing that I noticed is I like teaching. I like showing people, breaking different concepts down for students and for people. How can I do this at my job? And I noticed that they had a program called Kube Academy. And it's actually how I got into VMware, where when I was interviewing for the position, it's something that I would look into. I wanted to learn more about what is YAML, what is Kubernetes, what is all this tech stuff. And it's open to the public, it's free access. And once I got in, I was like, I definitely want to contribute to the space. And so if you guys, so I have this video on Kube Academy, what is YAML? So if you guys are interested, I can also drop that link into the chat, actually over here. Right. So I'm still able to use my teaching background in this position or at the company. Sorry. And then, so how do I use the cloud? So a lot of the clients come in with different backgrounds, different environments, and all of them is usually based on the cloud. Most recently, one of my clients actually worked with AWS, which worked really well for me because I had my AWS certification, so I was able to navigate that space pretty easily. And as you guys know, I have my AWS cloud certifications in AWS Cloud Practitioner, AWS Solutions Architect, and I am currently studying for my AWS SysOps. Okay. And then before I end this presentation, I just want to like encourage everyone to fail forward. So just apply. It is a numbers game out there. So just make sure you're applying to as many opportunities that you are interested in. Even if you apply for opportunities that you're not interested in, I would say take an interview anyway if you have that opportunity, because you'll get that interview practice. You'll know what tech spaces are looking for. You'll know what kind of questions you need to prepare for. You can see different types of interview practices. And so after all of that, when that one opportunity comes along that you're really interested in, you feel super prepared. All you need is one opportunity. You need one person to believe in you, to say, all you need to do is show them like, hey, I can do this job. I have done this, this, and this, and I can use all of these skills into this position if you just take this chance on me. And I know in the meantime, it's really hard. That transition phase, I think, had been the most difficult for me, where I just felt like, man, is it even worth changing fields? Like, I was a great teacher. Should I transition here? Like, how is this going to work for me? And I just want to say, just trudge forward, just keep on going. If you're in that weird transition time between maybe like a boot camp or during your learning and looking for a job, during that space, I would say do a volunteer and internship project while looking for a job. There are lots of local tech groups, tech meetups, tech companies that get together to like work with companies, to work with nonprofits or companies in the community, where you can volunteer your skills. And I think that would be a great place to do that. But just remember, just keep going, y'all. And now, okay, awesome. And now I'm ready for any questions. So feel free to ask me anything. If you have any questions about the slide, any questions about anything, feel free to drop it into the chat or ask out loud. I see a couple questions into the chat already. I can stop sharing and go ahead and answer. All right, so I saw that, Yvette. Okay, Yvette, do you recommend a cloud assistant teacher position as a positive on your resume? Does it expand your knowledge? I feel like a cloud assistant teacher position was definitely a positive, because I was able to leverage my teaching background, but also learn cloud at the same time. If there was anything that I didn't understand, I was able to flush it out and be like, oh, I must really understand this now, because I'm actually teaching it to other people. And the other part of that is, think of it as because I was able to be a cloud assistant, my next step, I was actually able to become a lead instructor for the program. And so that definitely helped me make my next step into VMware. I saw Haley wrote, how long did your transition take from deciding to switch to where you are now? So I quit my job as a teacher in November of 2019. And 2019. And from that, I was taking some odd jobs, and then the pandemic hit. And I think it was during the pandemic that I started getting really serious. So around April 2020, I started getting really serious about being in the tech field. And that was a good opportunity to take online classes. I took classes with Montgomery College, where it was a boot camp to learn Security Plus for the Security Plus certification. And then I did the AWS Cloud Practitioner and Solutions Architect. And so that was, I want to say, about at least half a year until I got the TA position where you are now. And the position at VMware is April. So actually almost a year. That's how long the entire transition took. Did you self-teach or go to a coding bootcamp to learn? I went through boot camps to learn, but I definitely had to do some extra understanding on the side of the path I wanted to go to. And I think that was like the most difficult thing, because technology was so broad. At first I was thinking, oh, maybe I wanted to get into the security space, especially cybersecurity, because it was so big. But I know that cloud is also pretty big. And so I tried to navigate based on what felt interesting to me. And cloud is where I could really see myself grow. And that's where I saw a lot more opportunities for a solutions architect. Will we be able to rewatch this webinar? I think so, because it's being recorded. And then, oh, perfect, Shermaine, you already answered it. You're on it. So if a remote job is very important to me, what are the chances of working in cloud remotely as an SA? So because of COVID, I think a lot of companies have noticed that, hey, I can do the same job online, right? And specifically for my company, what they've noticed is that probably even post-COVID, a lot of the positions will, if you want it to be, would still be remote, because a lot of companies have to pay extra for their for us to come in person. So they would save money by having it be online, and they still get the same output. So they're expecting our traveling to be about 30%, whereas in the past it's been about 70%. So the chances of working in the cloud remotely, I feel, as an SA, I feel like are pretty good. How did you choose a bootcamp instead of another degree? The reason why I chose a bootcamp is because I wanted to explore the different tech spaces and see what I was interested in, instead of committing a couple of years to this one, to a degree. Yeah, but a lot of it was just feeling it out. How is the pay difference? The pay difference between being a teacher and being in the technical space, I'd say, is almost definitely higher. So I used to be as a teacher, I had my master's and I had about 6 years of experience. And that pay increased drastically as a almost entry level, almost an entry level solutions architect. I would say about like a couple thousands of dollars. Okay.
Oh yes, Syeda, there are some questions in the Q&A. So there's a section called Q&A. There are like 3 questions there.
Oh, okay, awesome. What programming language does someone need to know to get into cloud? Is it more Linux than JavaScript? So I think it might be specific to different roles, but from what I've seen with cloud, it's especially Linux based. So I know for my role, one of the things that I want to learn is Linux, Python, and get really strong with cloud, specifically within Kubernetes. So for my role, I can only speak that I would say Linux would be like the way to go. Yeah. What does insurance and benefits look like in your current position in comparison to teaching? Okay, y'all. The insurance and benefits is amazing at VMware, especially. And it's actually available online. That's how comfortable they are with everyone knowing what the benefits are. So for example, maternity, paternity leave, vacation days are limitless. So, but it's expected, or like you're encouraged to take at least 1 week per quarter, right? Benefits, I don't think I even pay for healthcare. Let me see, what else am I thinking of? Oh, the other thing is with when we started working from home, they gave us like a $250 voucher to get our room set up. There's also $1,000 for wellness being. So that means that anything that's not related to, I think, guns, drug, or alcohol, you can spend $1,000 for anything that makes you feel good. So for example, if you're like, oh, hey, I want to go to the gym and my membership is going to be $1,000, or hey, I want to go shopping on Amazon and it's going to be $1,000. Like, you just get that for yourself, which is really nice. The other benefits are like every year you get a $5,000, what am I thinking of? $5,000 to do any type of learning that'll help you with your job. So it could be going to a conference. It could be taking some classes. It can be whatever you want it to be, as long as it's helping you in your learning. And then Melly, let me know if you want me to add anything else to that, or if you were looking for anything more specific than that. But my insurance, my benefits right now are so much more incredible than when I was a teacher. Would you say you're working less hours now than in teaching? Definitely. I think especially in teaching, one thing is that you are always on, right? And it starts before work, right? It starts before work, and it's like almost 24/7, right? During the weekends, you're talking to parents and making sure, like, you know, hey, can you make sure that the student turns in their homework? Or hey, just wanted to check in to let you know how things are going. But here I feel like I can be off at a certain point. Like when it's 5 o'clock, when it's 4 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with my day. I'm gonna think about this tomorrow morning. That's not only is it allowed, but it's like very encouraged. On average, how many hours do you work when you started the job versus now? Do you work when you started the job? Oh, that's a great question. I think it depends on what the activity is. I think when I was starting, I was doing a lot of training, and that was mostly like 9 to 4 with an hour break for lunch. And then every 45 minutes, we were also encouraged to take 15-minute breaks, just so we don't get like Zoom fatigued. Now that I've been with a client, the culture of the client versus the culture of VMware was, we had to find a middle ground for that. Whereas the culture of the client, they would work 9 to 5 straight, and then even during lunch they would go into other meetings. Whereas at VMware, we're encouraged to take our breaks as much as possible. And so I think it's going to vary depending on the client. But at the end of the day, it is always 9 to 5. The only reason I would want to work after is because if there's a problem that's happening and I'm like, oh man, I really know the answer, I can like solve it. But outside of that, it's not highly expected. Do you think it's worth taking a computer science degree or taking certifications? I think that's a really good question. I think right now, because I see a lot of people transitioning from different careers and or a lot of people trying to get into the tech field, I think it might be quicker to get certifications. I think that a computer science degree will hold more weight, but I think if you're trying to make it quick, I think certification is the way to go, because one thing, if you put that on your resume, it'll easily give you credentials of like, okay, this person understands these things. And certifications are not easy. Just even studying for it can take a couple months, and just making sure you understand the foundations of a lot of it can be really hard. So I would say either works, but I think certification might be an easier way to go. And then, does everyone get assigned one client or multiple clients? Can you walk us through what your typical day is? Yeah, that's great. So as a solutions architect, I have a team, right? So in my team, I have a PM, which is a product manager. So they're kind of in charge of communication with what the solution architects are doing, so what I'm doing, and with the client. We also have a delivery lead. Delivery lead kind of helps like deliver anything that the client might need. So as a solutions architect, I am working like 9:30. At 9:30, we have a stand-up with all the solutions architects. We have, or any stakeholders on both teams. So it could be a solutions architect, it can be the PMs, it can be everyone on both teams. We'll have a stand-up from 9 to about 9:15 to say, hey, this is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm planning on doing today. These are the blockers I'm having. And blockers are like, hey, this is something I couldn't do yesterday because we didn't have the code for this or this. And or I have a meeting at 2 o'clock. So I'll be out from 2 to 2:30. From 9:30, from 9:15 until the rest of the day, I am just working to make sure that the client is getting set up with their environment. but the week looks different. So we have Monday through Friday. Every weekday, every morning we'll have our stand up. Every Monday we'll do an IPM, which is an iteration planning meeting, to kind of be like, hey, these are the tasks we want to complete for this week. Let's work through it. Why do I want to complete this task? How can I make sure these are successful? So we're kind of doing a checklist and kind of setting our expectations of how we can call something successful. And then on Friday, we'll do a demo to everyone to be like, hey, this is what we worked on. This is how we worked on it. These are the things we were able to deliver to our clients. And then we got any feedback from the client to say, hey, this is not something I want you to focus on. This is more important for me, or, you know, whatever feedback the client might have for us. And then the next week we'll go through that again. So we're doing iteration. And so we're following the agile methodology for that. Okay. And then Anonymous, let me know if you want me to answer any more specific questions, anything more specific than that. Next question is, what was your interview process like with VMware? Yeah, actually, I really love this question because so I got this position from my friend who was targeted by a recruiter. And so they forwarded it to me. I reached out to the recruiter. The recruiter did a quick, like 5-minute call with me to kind of tell me about the position, but he was also kind of feeling me out to kind of see if he wanted to move me on to the next round. He liked me, and then he booked me booked me with someone who's like my manager's manager, but she had left the company, but had booked me with her. And we had a very soft skill conversation. That was the first round. She just wanted to get to know me. What am I interested in? And this is where, like, you know, you being prepared with your resume and kind of your story is great, because you already know what you want to say. And so that was the first round. Second round was very technical. It was about, you know, what is Kubernetes? What is Docker? How much how much do you know about, you know, management clusters? But I also was very clear in that interview. I was like, hey, this is not my background. My background is AWS. And I was able to control that conversation by saying, oh, hey, these are the things that I know from AWS that I know can help me in this position. But it was very technical. And that was about 30 to 45 minutes. And my last interview was with a panel of 3 other people. And there was one delivery lead and 2 like higher like regional managers, I would think, on the panel. And I had to deliver this presentation. The question was, what are you passionate about? So I had to deliver a presentation about what are you passionate about. So I talked about storytelling and actually how I was able to, and so the story I used was a story of me and my partner. We were looking for his biological mother, and we used OSINT, open source intelligence, to do that. And so I talked about how I love storytelling, and here's the story, and we use technology, and we were able to find his mother. And so that was my last interview. The reason why I really enjoyed that as my last interview, because it showed me what they were looking for. They were looking for people with soft skills. Like technology is easy to learn. Those technical skills are easy to learn, but those soft skills are harder to learn. So they wanted somebody with soft skills, especially because we were going to be put in front of clients. And now I see Yvette says, so you follow agile methodology. Yeah, so a lot of different companies will follow agile methodologies, but they will implement them differently. And I kind of see that with my clients too. They'll say, oh, we follow agile, but I'm like, oh, but why aren't you taking a break? Or why aren't we, you know, talking, like, why aren't we like organizing our thoughts? And so we do follow the agile methodology, but it'll look different in different companies, which I kind of went through a little bit with the iteration planning that we do weekly. Oh, that was a lot of, oh, okay. So what soft skills do you think are the most important to hone and highlight in our job applications? That's a good question. So when I'm thinking of like job applications or resumes, that's not a place where I put my soft skills. I think it's during the interview process that you want to show off those soft skills. And a big part of that is just being prepared for those conversations, and just feeling comfortable where your answers don't sound like you're reading it off, but that, you kind of have the idea in your head and you're able to have a very relaxed conversation, and I think, and this part is really hard, but like trying not to be nervous or just feeling really comfortable in the space that you're in, and finding ways to control the conversation. Like when you're thinking of an interview, right? The reason why you're giving someone your resume is not because you're saying, oh, hey, these are my credentials, but you're also saying, hey, like if you have any questions, these are the questions that you can ask me. You can ask me questions about any of these things. So you're kind of giving them an index of like, hey, I know all these things, you can ask me about it, and this conversation is going to go well, right? So you should never lie on your resume. And so when you're thinking of an interview, that's exactly what it is. It's like, oh, you're giving them the script of what you want them to say, so you control that. So just make sure you remember that as you're thinking about your resume or like an interview, is like you're in control of the conversations you want to be had in that space. And then Yvette wrote, how often do you work on the console? Like AWS console? I'm assuming that is what you mean. Yeah, so I think it varies depending on the client and the environment that we're using and the product that they want. But in my last engagement, we used it almost every day. Like we want to be like, I had to be pretty comfortable with the console, and not necessarily all aspect of like AWS, but I needed to know, like with EC2, you need to delete these, or like when we ran any scripts, and we wanted to check to make sure it was on the AWS console. So we would use it in that way. Awesome. Thank you all for these questions. Please feel free to ask me anything else.
I think there are still some questions on the chat.
Okay, yeah.
Like the chat itself.
I gotta go back and forth. Okay. All right. So hold on. So I see. Do you have to do billing? Like how many hours you spent on this client, etc. Yep. So my position is meant to be billable hours. Right. So so the way this works is VMware hires me, right? And so they can pay me. They pay me for training. So VMware, like my salary is always the same, right? But VMware, when I'm training, VMware is going to pay me. But when I'm with my client, those are billable hours, and those are hours that I'm sending off to my client. So what's really happening behind the scenes is that VMware is like overcharging for me, and that way, when VMware pays me, they're making that profit. But it depends. So my engagements are usually last 3 weeks to 3 months, and usually it's 40 hours a week. So I'll be a billable person for those 40 hours. But then after every engagement, we also have this thing called beach time, or being on the bench, where we're kind of just getting ready for our next engagement. So we'll use that time to learn the next technology, like the technology that we'll need for the next client. And then how long is maternity and paternity? That's a great question. I can't tell you the top of my head, just because it's not something I was interested in looking at, but I do remember that happening. And they also had, like, if you're adopting a child or if you're getting in vitro, they also gave you time off for that. So I'm not sure, Melly. I can look it up and get back to you. Do you have to travel for your engagements, or is it online mostly? Yep. So right now it's mostly online. I do. So with VMware, we have like the public space, which is federal, and then we have the private space with private clients. And I know a lot of people on the federal side or the public sector side, have to actually travel physically for their engagements, because a lot of the work they do might be in a SCIF, which might be like internet restricted, so they have to physically be there. I'm in a position where I think I can still say, hey, I'm interested in going to the client, or I'm not. But overall, I haven't met anyone on my side, on the private side, where it hasn't been an online, where it hasn't been online for the most part. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Haley, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out if I've answered this question. So Haley, I see that. How is your work-life balance? For me personally, it's been really great. A lot of my supervisor will also tell me, like, make sure you're taking your time off. Even when I have like a day, like for example, when I celebrated Eid, I've asked for that day off, but I wanted to go in and check my email, and you'll see that like your Slack is on, and so my supervisor will be like, hey Syeda, make sure you're having a great like a great Eid, kind of like her way of being like, don't be on the computer, like your work is like, stay focused on home. So I feel like that has been great. Thanks. Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. Were there any other questions that I might have missed?
Yeah, there are more questions on the Q&A
perfect.
now.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. Do you have to travel for your engagement? Oh no, I think I got them all. Right.
Oh yeah, they're repeated from the chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wait a little longer if there are any more questions. Yep, that's a new one.
But how many years total did it take you to transition from education to getting your first job? So I would say from when I decided, hey, I'm going to get into technology, to my job at VMware, I think that would be a total of a full year. So, and within that year, and remember, this is also during COVID. So everyone was getting comfortable with being at home. So this was like a really great opportunity for me to just study online as much as I can. And so, and I also didn't have a job during that time, or like I only had like part-time jobs during that time. So it took me a full year from where I started to where I am now. But just to remind you guys, like during that entire time, that was really difficult. Like that was a difficult period where it was just like, okay, like cybersecurity isn't working for me. Like I'm applying to these jobs and nothing is happening, and blah, blah, like it was a difficult time. And it was just like, oh, should I just give up? Like I can get back into teaching. Like, what do I do now? Like, what's my next step? And so every time I did something, there would be, every time I took like one step forward, it would feel like two steps back. I'd be like, okay, I'm making it. I'm not. But really, it's just like, it was like when I finally got the job at VMware, I was just like, oh, finally. And it's really funny because during that time, I also had people, like I had gotten the job from VMware, and then all these other companies responded to me being like, oh, hey, Syeda, we just wanted to follow up and like give you a second interview for this, this, and this. And I'm like, I don't need you guys anymore. Like, I'm so happy right now. So really just like push forward, just keep applying. That's like my biggest thing. Okay. Awesome. Any more questions? Thank you all so much for the questions. Like I didn't realize it would be so much. And it's so funny because I'm like, I can only hear myself talk for like the last hour. Awesome. you all, like, thank you so much. Like, literally, if you guys have any questions at all that I haven't answered, or if you think of a question later, please feel free to connect with me. I'm going to go ahead and drop my LinkedIn into the chat. Feel free to connect with me. If you see positions that you're interested in and you're like, hey, I would love some insight in this, like, feel free to reach out to me. Like, I've definitely been where you all are, and I just want to help everyone through it. Let me go ahead and drop my LinkedIn into the chat. And Sherman also just dropped the link to join our Slack.
Okay, if no one else has any more questions, then thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Syeda. Thank you so much for taking your time off to do this for us.
Thank you all. Thank you, Shermaine, for helping me organize this. And thank you for everyone. Yeah, thank you for everyone, all the participants, for being super interactive. Thank you guys. I don't know, thank you all. Like, I'm so excited for everyone's path, and I'm here as a resource for sure. So thank you.
Yep, and do join us on Slack so that you can like reach out to Syeda anytime. And like on Slack, we also have a lot of resources that you can find, and like even study groups if you would like to take some certifications. So do join us on Slack. Let me just send the link again. And yes, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. And if you'd like to rewatch the session anytime in the future, we will upload it on our YouTube channel in about a week or two. So this is like our link. You can just like search Women Who Code on YouTube, and that works too. Yep. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I'll end the call. Bye-bye. Thank you, Syeda.
Thank you.
Bye.